All BRICS partners support the AU's Agenda 2063 and are significant investors in our continent. The new development bank, with its African Regional Center in Johannesburg, also continues to mobilize resources for infrastructure development. And under its new leadership, we all heard what their vision is for our continent in terms of supporting infrastructure development. This significant infrastructure investment needed to operationalize the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will unlock the benefits of the continental market and generate mutually beneficial opportunities for both African and BRICS countries. These opportunities relate not only to trade and investment, but also in driving sustainable development and increased standards of living for the people of our continent. In this regard, we thank the Chinese government for expressing its full support to the South African BRICS chairship in fulfilling the African agenda. We need to place China-Africa relations in the context of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation (FOCAC), which advances a strategic and cooperative partnership between the continent of Africa and China. There is a need to further strengthen consultation and coordination on FOCAC to enhance implementation and practical cooperation in various fields under the Dakar Action Plan. Future engagements should be aligned with the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063. There should be joint monitoring and evaluation as well. South Africa calls for a review of all FOCAC projects so that we can ascertain the level of implementation. We would welcome technical, financial, and capacity building support for the identified projects. We are in full support of the Belt and Road Initiative that China has been implementing, and this has resulted in the creation of new road, rail, port, and energy investments on the African continent. Investing in infrastructure is essential, and infrastructure investments also foster innovation and productivity, and they lower transaction costs as well. And as we move forward with the decade of Agenda 2063, we must focus on African countries reaching middle income status and empowering African citizens through improved productivity. We need to build more integrated and a more connected Africa. Central to African growth is going to be the African Continental Free Trade Area, and through this, we hope to be able to boost economic growth on our continent. It will also lead to industrialization for the African continent, and where we will be able to address underdevelopment, unemployment, women's empowerment, climate change, and energy and youth development as well. As part of deepening China-Africa relations, we should enhance cooperation in the international affairs as well as within various multilateral institutions. China and Africa should cooperate in calling for the creation of institutional mechanisms that will have the stature, the form, and the global trust to effectively manage matters of global peace and security. Our deliberations this evening will afford us the opportunity to address a number of key developmental challenges that are specific to Africa. Dealing with regional challenges will further enhance our goals and regional integration in support of our continent's integration. This can only be achieved with all our commitment and through the assistance of important development partners like China. I'd like, as I end, to extend a word of gratitude to China, a country that came to the aid of our continent at the greatest time of need. As we were going through the challenges of COVID-19, it was China that stood up and gave assistance to the African continent. I remember very clearly, as I was chair of the African Union, calling President Xi Jinping on the telephone and urging him to assist us with personal protective equipment and later with vaccines, but also much later with debt relief. And in all those occasions, as I spoke to President Xi on the phone, on more or less 3 occasions, I found a partner of Africa willing to assist at the time of great need for our continent. So I would say that in China, we have a partner who is able to see the developmental needs of our continent. And in us, President Xi Jinping, you have a partner, many countries on our continent, that you can walk the path of mutual beneficial interests. And we are fully aware that this is not a one-way interest journey. It's a mutual beneficial interest, which we as African countries want to promote, and we are thankful that you also subscribe to that. In this regard, I once again welcome all of you to this important roundtable dialogue and look forward to our engagement. Thank you very much.
尊敬的拉玛普萨总统
Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies, Heads of State, colleagues, I thank President Ramaphosa for his statement. South Africa has held BRICS summits multiple times, actively reflected the African characters in BRICS cooperation, and played an important role for China and Africa to deepen cooperation within the BRICS framework. China is ready to work with South Africa to make new efforts to strengthen China-Africa cooperation and the cooperation between BRICS and Africa. I now make a statement on behalf of the Chinese side. Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies, colleagues, it is a great pleasure to co-chair with President Ramaphosa the China-Africa Leaders Dialogue. I feel a particular warmth seeing my African friends face to face after 5 years to celebrate our friendship and chart the way forward for our cooperation. I thank my friends for attending the meeting and send sincere greetings to leaders of other African countries who are not with us today. Africa is a fertile land of hope in the 21st century. This is my 10th visit to the continent. Each time, I feel the new development and changes in Africa. As the Organization of African Unity marks its 60th anniversary this year, I wish to convey heartfelt congratulations to you all and to the African people. Over the past 60 years, under the banner of Pan-Africanism, African countries have made big strides on the path of independence, seeking strength through unity and integration. You have demonstrated the strength of Africa in the struggles to uphold multilateralism and the common interests of developing countries. With steady progress under Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the official launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and growing coordination among the sub-regional groups, Africa is becoming an important pole with global influence. In 2013, when I became Chinese president, I was here in Africa for my first foreign visit and announced the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith for China's Africa policy. Over the past 10 years, China has stayed committed to this principle. Together with our African friends, and drawing strength from the spirit of China-Africa friendship and cooperation, we have pressed ahead on the path of solidarity and cooperation, stood for justice amid shifting global dynamics, and looked out for each other in face of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have taken China-Africa relations to new heights and entered the new stage of jointly building a high-level China-Africa community with a shared future. Colleagues, China is marching toward the second centenary goal of building itself into a great modern socialist country in all respects that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful when the People's Republic marks its centenary. We are pursuing the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts through a Chinese path to modernization. Africa is moving at an accelerated speed toward the bright prospects envisioned in Agenda 2063, and making all-out efforts to build a new Africa that enjoys peace, unity, prosperity, and strength. China and Africa must work together to create a sound environment for realizing our respective development visions. Let's work together to promote a just and equitable international order. We should carry forward the spirit of sticking together in times of adversity, practice true multilateralism, and unequivocally oppose vestiges of colonialism and hegemonism in all forms. We should firmly support each other in defending core interests, stand strong by the just cause of developing countries, and work for a more just and equitable international order. Let's work together to safeguard a peaceful and secure global environment. Africa is working unremittingly for the goal of silencing the guns. China is ready to work with Africa to implement the new vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. Advocate the resolution of differences and disputes through dialogue and cooperation. Facilitate the political settlement of international and regional hotspot issues, and safeguard world peace and stability. We should uphold harmonious coexistence between man and nature and protect the security of the global eco-environment. Let's work together to build an open and inclusive world economy. What we need is to remove barriers rather than erect walls, open up rather than close off. We should carry out extensive consultation and make joint contribution for shared benefit, reject the winner-take-all approach, and build an open world economy where developing countries are better involved in the international division of labor and share the fruits of economic globalization. We should overcome estrangement between civilizations through exchanges, promote inclusiveness and mutual learning between civilizations, and make new contributions to human progress. Colleagues, there are various paths leading to modernization. The African people have the most say on which path suits Africa best. Advancing modernization through integration is the independent choice made by African countries and people. On this path to modernization, China has all along been a firm supporter and working side by side with Africa. Over the years, China has helped Africa build a large amount of connectivity infrastructure, carried out extensive cooperation with the AU and sub-regional organizations, and assisted the construction of several signature Pan-African projects, including the AU Conference Center and the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Looking ahead, China will work with Africa to enhance the synergy of our development strategies. Through Belt and Road cooperation and the Forum on China-Africa cooperation, and in light of Agenda 2063, China will intensify dialogue and communication with Africa at various levels and support the African agencies for integration, including the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, and the African Union of Broadcasting, among others, in creating cooperation mechanisms with China. China will continue to support Africa in speaking with one voice on international affairs and continuously elevating its international standing. China will work actively at the G20 summit next month to support the AU's full membership in the group. China supports making special arrangements on the UN Security Council reform to meet Africa's aspiration as a priority. China will call on multilateral financial institutions to enhance the say of African countries. To chart the course for our practical cooperation in the next stage and help Africa bring its integration and modernization into a fast track, I wish to make the following 3 proposals. China will launch the Initiative on Supporting Africa's Industrialization. China will better harness its resources for cooperation with Africa and the initiative of businesses to support Africa in growing its manufacturing sector and realizing industrialization and economic diversification. In implementing the 9 programs under the FOCAC framework, China will channel more resources of assistance, investment, and financing toward programs for industrialization. China will launch the Plan for China Supporting Africa's Agricultural Modernization. China will help Africa expand grain plantation, encourage Chinese companies to increase agricultural investment in Africa, enhance cooperation with Africa on seed and other areas of agrotechnology, to support Africa in transforming and upgrading its agricultural sector. China will host the second Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in Agriculture in Hainan this November. To help Africa tackle the current food crisis, China will provide additional emergency food assistance to some African countries in need. More importantly, China has confidence that Africa will attain food self-sufficiency through its own efforts. China will launch the Plan for China-Africa Cooperation on Talent Development. China plans to train 500 principals and high-caliber teachers of vocational colleges and 10,000 technical personnel with both Chinese language and vocational skills for Africa every year. China will invite 20,000 government officials and technicians of African countries to participate in workshops and seminars. To support Africa in strengthening education and innovation, we will launch the China-Africa Universities 100 Cooperation Plan and 10 pilot exchange programs of China-Africa Partner Institutes. Colleagues, the world today is undergoing shifts and turmoil, and changes unseen in a century are unfolding at a faster pace. At this point of history, we all face the tasks of how to address the deficit in development, overcome security challenges, and enhance mutual learning between civilizations. In view of this, I have put forward the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative, called for peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit, and advocated building a community with a shared future for mankind. These proposals have received valuable support of African countries. China and Africa, through our creative explorations for modernization, are giving our answers to the questions of our times and making joint efforts to advance the great endeavors of win-win cooperation, harmonious coexistence, and shared prosperity of civilizations. Next year, China will host the FOCAC meeting, where we shall come together again and draw up new plans for our development. It is a big gathering that both sides are looking forward to. I am confident that China and Africa will carry forward the traditional friendship, enhance solidarity and coordination, and bolster our cooperation across the board. As we join hands to advance modernization, we will deliver a better future for the Chinese and African people and set a fine example in the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. I thank you.